Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
1. Introduction. The Middle East region saw sudden and unexpected attacks. These military strikes happened quickly. They caused a lot of worry in many countries around the world. It was a surprising event for many people. After the strikes, President Trump of the United States made an announcement. He spoke about the attacks on television. He said that America had successfully hit important places in Iran. These were places connected to Iran's nuclear program. President Trump claimed that the strikes were very effective. He said they had obliterated Iran's main nuclear sites. This strong word meant that the sites were completely destroyed. This claim was a big statement about the success of the military action. However, Iran had a different story. The foreign minister of Iran spoke after President Trump. He said that the American strikes did not cause serious damage. He said the damage was not as big as President Trump claimed. Iran also strongly criticized the United States. Iran said that the U.S. had broken international law by attacking. This means Iran believed the attacks were illegal according to global rules. Iran was very angry and used strong words against America. Iran did not only deny damage, it also made threats. Iran said it would respond to the attacks. They said they would take strong action against the United States. One specific threat was about the Strait of Hormuz. This is a narrow sea passage. A lot of oil passes through it every day on ships. Iran suggested it might close this strait. Closing it would stop the ships. This would hurt the world's economy badly and cause many problems. This threat showed how serious the situation could become. Leaders in countries all over the world watched the events. They were very concerned about the rising tension. The tension means the dangerous feeling between countries that could lead to fighting. The leaders asked everyone to be calm. They called for de-escalation. This means trying to reduce the anger and the risk of more fighting. The United Nations, a group of many countries working for peace, held an emergency meeting. The head of the UN asked for talking instead of fighting to stop the situation from getting worse. The world waited to see what would happen next. Would Iran do what it threatened? Would the U.S. attack again? The future was uncertain. The sudden strikes had changed the situation quickly. The risk of more conflict in the Middle East felt very real. People hoped that leaders could find a way to stop the danger, but the threats and the strong words made peace seem difficult. Everyone was watching carefully for the next steps from all sides. This was the beginning of a new and dangerous time. 2. The attack. The United States started military action. U.S. planes flew over Iran. These planes were bombers. They attacked important places connected to Iran's nuclear program. The name for this attack was Operation Midnight Hammer. The U.S. used special, strong weapons in the attack. These were bombs that could hit deep under the ground. The planes dropped these bombs on key sites. President Trump spoke about the attack. He said the places hit were completely destroyed. He used the word obliterated to describe the damage. He said the strikes were very successful. After the attack, people looked at pictures from space. These pictures showed the areas that were hit. For example, pictures of a place called Fordo showed damage. Another place, Isfahan, also looked different after the bombs. The pictures showed that the bombs caused a lot of damage to these sites. The U.S. military also looked at the results of the attack. They made their own report. The military said the damage was very bad. They called it severe damage, but they did not say the sites were completely destroyed. Their report was different from what President Trump said. One important target was the place at Fordo. This site is built under mountains. It is hard to reach. The bombs hit this place. Pictures showed holes where the bombs hit the ground before going deep. There was white dust around the holes. This was probably from the concrete that was hit. Another place hit was at Natanz. This is also a nuclear site. The U.S. planes hit this site too. The attack was planned carefully. Some planes flew a very long way, many hours, to drop the bombs. Officials in the U.S. said the military action was finished for now. They hoped Iran would not attack back, but the situation was serious. The world watched to see what would happen next after the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear sites. The damage was done, but the full results were not yet clear. 3. Iran's words. The government of Iran spoke after the attacks. Iran's foreign minister said the U.S. claims were not true. He said the attacks did not cause big damage to their nuclear sites. Iran said the United States broke international law. This means the U.S. did something against the rules between countries. Iran said the U.S. government must take responsibility for the results. They called the attacks an act of aggression. This means one country attacked another country without a good reason in law. Iran said the U.S. action was a very bad violation of international rules and the Charter of the United Nations. They said the U.S. administration in Washington is solely and fully responsible for the dangerous and far-reaching consequences of its action. Iran also sent strong messages. They said they would respond to the attacks. They did not say exactly how, but they said they have many options. They are keeping all their options open for how to react. One important thing Iran talked about was the Strait of Hormuz. This is a narrow sea area between Iran and other countries. Many ships use this strait every day to carry oil to other countries around the world. It is a very important place for the world's economy. Iran suggested it might close this strait. This would stop the ships and could cause big problems for the world's oil supply and prices. They said this sea passage is strategically important, meaning it is important for military and economic reasons. Closing it would be a way for Iran to hurt the economies of other nations and show its power. Iran said it has the right to defend itself. They said they will respond to protect their country and its sovereignty. Sovereignty means a country has the right to rule itself without other countries interfering. They believe the U.S. attacks were wrong and dangerous. Iran said these actions could have very bad consequences for the region. The situation is now very tense. The world is watching closely to see what Iran will do next. Iran's words show they are angry and ready to respond in some way. They see the U.S. action as a serious violation of their country's right to be safe and independent. Iran's president said that his country will not be pushed around by anyone. He said the U.S. must receive a response for its aggression. Iran's Revolutionary Guard also spoke. They warned that U.S. military bases in the region are not safe. They said these bases are vulnerable to attack. They mentioned bases in places like Iraq, Bahrain, and Qatar as possible targets. They suggested that attacking these bases is one way Iran could respond. However, Iran knows that if they attack U.S. bases, the U.S. might attack again with even more force. This makes the decision about how to respond very difficult and risky for Iran's leaders. Iran has made its position clear through its words and threats. 4. World views. After the recent events, countries around the world shared their thoughts. Many leaders were concerned about the situation in the Middle East. They worried about more fighting. The United Nations Security Council held an urgent meeting. It was an emergency meeting because the situation was serious. The countries in the meeting talked about what happened. They talked about the military actions. The leader of the United Nations, the Secretary General, spoke at the meeting. He said it was important for countries to talk to each other. He used the word dialogue. He said that talking must happen to stop the Middle East from having more fighting. He said the people in the region have already seen too much destruction. He warned that there was a risk of more attacks and revenge. Leaders in Europe also talked. The leaders of the United Kingdom, France, and Germany met. They were worried about the situation getting worse. They asked Iran to be careful. They urged Iran not to do anything that would make the region less stable. They wanted to avoid more problems. Other important countries also gave their opinions. Russia and China spoke about the U.S. actions. They said the attacks by the United States were wrong. They said the U.S. broke international rules. Russia and China pushed for diplomacy. This means they wanted countries to talk and find a peaceful answer. They did not want the fighting to continue. Around the world, people and leaders felt a growing concern. They worried about the stability of the region. They knew that a bigger conflict could affect many countries, not just those directly involved. There was a feeling that the situation could easily become more dangerous. The world watched and waited to see what would happen next. 5. Inside Iran. Iran's president spoke after the attacks. He said that his country would not be pushed around by the United States. He spoke strongly and demanded that the U.S. must receive a response for its aggression. He made it clear Iran would not be silent after the strikes. Inside Iran, the feelings of the people were not simple. Public opinion showed division and confusion. There were different ideas about how Iran should react. Some people felt very angry about the attacks. They believed Iran must give a firm and strong response. They thought this was important to protect Iran's identity and show strength. But other people were more cautious. They felt confused and unsure about what the future might bring. They thought Iran needed time to think carefully about the situation before doing anything. This showed that people inside the country had very different views. The Revolutionary Guard, an important military group, also gave a warning. They said that American military bases located in the region were vulnerable to attack. This meant the bases were not safe places. However, the Revolutionary Guard also understood the danger. They knew that if Iran attacked these U.S. bases, it could lead to more attacks from the United States. This possibility of more fighting made the situation very serious and risky. Reports from the border between Iran and Turkey showed some movement. People were crossing the border in both directions. Some people were leaving Iran. They were fleeing because they were scared after the attacks by the US and Israel. One person who left Tehran and crossed into Turkey said he felt relieved to be safe. He described the situation as very scary for everyone inside Iran. He said it was difficult to leave, and some people who wanted to go could not because they did not have the right papers like passports. The report said it was not a large number of people leaving, mostly those who had ways to travel. Others were going back into Iran. They were rushing to be with their families. These people often seemed quiet and afraid to talk openly about the events. Among some citizens, there was a feeling of hope. A young boy who left Iran with his family spoke about wanting a new Iran. He said he hoped for freedom and that he would go back if the country changed. This showed that despite the fear and uncertainty, some people still wished for a different future for Iran. People inside Iran also had different ideas about what would happen to the current leaders. Some believed the leadership was strong and would stay in power for many years. Others thought that maybe the leaders would fall later, but they worried about what kind of government might come next, perhaps a military one. There was no agreement or clear picture of the future leadership. Overall, inside Iran, people felt a lot of uncertainty. They did not know what was coming next. This feeling was shared by many, making it a difficult and unpredictable time for the country. 6. Israel's aims. Israel kept its military actions going. They continued to launch missile strikes. These strikes were aimed at different cities inside Iran. This period has been very difficult for people living in these areas. Both sides have been involved in these attacks. Iran also launched missiles in response. These missiles flew a long way to hit cities in Israel. Places like the cities of Haifa and Tel Aviv were hit. These attacks caused harm to many people. It was reported that more than 80 people were injured because of these missile strikes. These attacks show the serious nature of the conflict. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, spoke about the ongoing fight. He spoke with strong words about Israel's position. He said that Israel would definitely not stop its actions. He made it very clear. He stated that they would continue until they successfully reached all of their intended goals in this conflict. Their determination is very strong. A key goal for Israel is extremely important to them. They want to prevent Iran from being able to build nuclear weapons. This is the main reason why Israel takes military action. Israeli leaders believe that if Iran had nuclear weapons, it would put Israel in great danger. Prime Minister Netanyahu has believed for a very long time that something needed to be done about Iran's nuclear program. He has talked about the need for action for many years, even decades. Recently, the United States military carried out strikes against Iran. Prime Minister Netanyahu sees this action by the U.S. as a very important moment in the history of this conflict. He described the U.S. strikes as a turning point. He believes that President Trump's decision to use military force was a significant event that will be remembered. He feels that the actions taken by the U.S. help in the effort to stop Iran from getting very dangerous weapons. From the perspective of Israel, there is no room for any mistakes when it comes to Iran's nuclear work. They feel they must be completely certain and careful. Israel's military actions are based on what its leaders believe is necessary to protect their country and ensure its survival. So, the conflict continues with military actions from both sides. Israel is very focused on its goal of preventing Iran from developing nuclear weapons. The recent strikes by the United States are viewed by Israel's leaders as a very important step that supports Israel's own long-term efforts. The situation remains very tense and dangerous as Israel works hard to achieve its aims. 7. Next steps. In the United States, people started talking about the recent strikes. There were important discussions. Some people in the government and in Congress asked difficult questions. They wanted to know if the president had the legal right to attack without asking Congress first. The U.S. Constitution says only Congress can decide to go to war. Some believed the president's actions might not follow the law. This was a serious point. The U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, spoke about the future. He said that the best way forward now was to have direct talks with Iran. He said the U.S. was ready for these talks. He suggested America could talk with Iran very soon, maybe even the next day. This showed that some leaders wanted to move towards diplomacy and away from fighting. President Trump used his social media platform. He posted messages about the situation in Iran. He hinted at bigger possibilities. He suggested that perhaps it was time for the government in Iran to change. He used the phrase regime change. This idea is very strong and can mean replacing the current leaders. His words made people think about the goals. However, the military had a different message. Officials from the Pentagon gave a clear statement. They said that the purpose of the recent military action was not to change the leadership in Iran. They stated their goal was specific to the nuclear facilities. They wanted to make it clear the military operation did not aim to replace the current Iranian government. This was a different message compared to the president's posts. Soon, an important meeting will take place. Leaders from many countries in NATO will gather. The NATO summit will be in the Netherlands. President Trump will attend. Leaders from European countries and other NATO members will talk with him. They want to discuss the situation. Their main message will be about de-escalation. This means they want things to become calmer. They will encourage President Trump to choose diplomacy instead of more military actions. This summit is seen as a key moment to prevent further conflict and find peace. Many people are waiting to see what comes from this meeting. 8. The future. The time right after the attacks was full of questions and doubts. Nobody knew exactly what would happen next. This made the future very uncertain for everyone involved, not just in the Middle East, but around the world. The situation was seen as very delicate and dangerous. Experts said there was a high risk of a dangerous miscalculation. This means that leaders could make a mistake, a wrong choice, that could have very serious and bad results. A miscalculation could easily lead to the conflict becoming much larger and harder to control. People carefully thought about how Iran might respond to the attacks. Iran's leaders had clearly stated that their country would answer the actions taken against them. There were different potential methods Iran could use for this retaliation. One main way Iran could respond was by using its missiles. Iran has missiles that could reach military bases where the United States has soldiers stationed in countries close by. These countries include Iraq, Bahrain, and Qatar. If these bases were attacked and American soldiers were hurt or killed, the United States would feel it had to respond strongly. This could quickly make the fighting much worse and lead to a larger war. Another serious possible action for Iran was to close a very important sea area called the Strait of Hormuz. This strait is a narrow passage of water. Many ships from different countries use it every day. A large amount of the world's oil and gas is transported by ships through this strait. If Iran stopped ships from using it, the supply of energy to many parts of the world would be affected. This would have a very big and negative impact on the economies of many countries. Because the danger was so high, many countries around the world started working hard to stop the situation from getting worse. They focused on diplomacy. Diplomacy is the process where representatives from different countries talk to each other. They try to find peaceful ways to solve disagreements and prevent conflict. The United Nations played a role. The UN Security Council held emergency meetings. The leader of the UN said strongly that talking must be the way forward to stop the Middle East from falling into more fighting and destruction. He said dialogue must prevail. Leaders in Europe also made efforts. The leaders of the United Kingdom, France, and Germany spoke together and asked Iran not to take any steps that would make the region less stable. They urged Iran not to escalate. Countries like Russia and China, who have relationships with Iran, also shared their views. They said they did not agree with the attacks by the United States. They also pushed for more talking and less fighting. They called for diplomacy. Many world leaders were planning to meet soon at a large international summit, like the upcoming NATO summit. One of the most important topics they would discuss was how to encourage de-escalation. De-escalation means reducing the tension and the risk of fighting. These leaders would work towards efforts to calm the situation. Some countries, including European and Arab nations, plan to try and talk directly with Iran to find a way out of the crisis. However, Iran's position was that it would not hold talks while the attacks were happening. Iran stated it would not talk while the bombs were falling. This made the work of diplomacy very challenging. As a result, the tension between the countries involved remained high. The situation was still very risky. The recent attacks changed the situation in the Middle East significantly. The future for stability in the region was very unclear. People did not know if the conflict would grow into a larger war, or if somehow a path to peace could be found. The long-term consequences of these events for the stability of the Middle East and for the world were uncertain for everyone watching. The period ahead was full of unknown possibilities and risks.